All right, we are live.
All right. Well, hello, Mesa Public Schools community. My name is Andy Forlis, and I am the very proud superintendent of Mesa Public Schools. We are here today on Facebook Live. This is part of our series of events that is part of our Safe, Strong, Ready plan to open up Mesa Public Schools. I'm going to introduce my guests, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our topic, which is modified in-person learning. So I have the pleasure to be joined by Mr. Jeff Abrams, who is the principal at Franklin at Brimhall, as well as Kathy Ray, the principal at Porter. So Jeff, you want to give a wave? Kathy, want to give a wave? There they are. They have been hard at work preparing for our kids to come back to this modified in-person learning experience. Jeff and Kathy both have served on our health and safety design team. In addition to being principals, they are sharing their expertise and learning and contributing to the great plan that we have placed before our community. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan, and I'm going to talk a little bit about these two principals so you know who they are as they answer some of these questions that are coming to us via Facebook Live today. So Mrs. Kathy Ray at Porter Elementary, she has raised her kids in Mesa Public Schools. Her children are a product of Mesa Public Schools. She's been a principal in our district for 9 years and has an amazing expertise that she has been able to contribute to the work of our Safe, Strong, Ready plan. And the same goes for Mr. Abrams. Mr. Abrams is the principal, as I mentioned, at Franklin at Brimhall, which is a kindergarten through 8th grade school. So he's got that dip into the junior high experience on his campus. His wife is a teacher in our district, so understands what it's like to have a principal and a teacher in the house, as well as 2 elementary children. So they are navigating this work of remote learning as a principal, as a father, and then also married to a teacher. So we have a wealth of experience around this table that is going to talk about modified in-person instruction. So let me talk to you about the why behind that and what it is. So you know that the Arizona Department of Health, as well as Maricopa County Health Department, is guiding the opening of schools throughout our state based on public health metrics. They are providing metrics to us that help us to decide when we open up our schools into different learning models. So in Mesa Public Schools, we are currently in that remote learning. We are watching our data. We have made a commitment to our staff and to our communities that we are hopeful that we can open up our schools to modified in-person on September 14th. But in order to do that, we have to monitor our public health metrics. So tomorrow at 9 a.m., Arizona Department of Health, as well as Maricopa County Department of Health, will be releasing the most updated metrics. So that will give us a kind of that dipstick check. Are we on the right path? We will be doing that again on September 10th. And based on those metrics, we will then be able to confirm that we will be opening up to modified in-person on September 14th. Now, when you watch those websites, you will see the color yellow. And when our district goes yellow, it'll say hybrid. That means in Mesa Public School language, that's modified in person. That's the same as hybrid model. So we have our vocabulary situated. So when we are ready, we have plans. So I want to talk to you about why modified in person. The public health officials are recommending that when we go from remote, we ease in to in-person instruction with a midpoint of hybrid, or what we're calling modified in-person. That reduces the number of children on a campus by 50%. And that also means that there's 50% kids less on a bus every day and so on. So it's very methodical about reducing numbers of kids, and also build some comfort with smaller numbers on our campus as we teach our safety and our mitigation strategies. So that is the intent behind that. Also want to share that students will be grouped into 2 groups, either the A group, they will be attending school on Mondays and Thursdays, or the B group, Tuesdays and Fridays. Wednesday will be a day for teachers to meet with children in small groups and then to have some professional development. As you can imagine, this new way of doing school requires training and support and collaboration among our educators. So it's important that we dedicate time so that they can deliver the very best product they can to our families. So we're going to jump in to some of our questions. that we have that are coming in. We have lots and lots of questions related to masks or face coverings. So, Mrs. Ray, I'm going to have you start the questions. What will wearing a mask look like, and what will mask breaks look like on an elementary school campus? And then Mr. Abrams, maybe you could jump in to talk about that junior high level. So, Mrs. Ray.
So all of our children in kindergarten through sixth grade at our school will be required to have a mask when they get on the bus, wear a mask at school. Our pre-K students will have the option of wearing masks. So some of them are special needs students, 3-year-olds who have speech instructional needs that may not be conducive for them to wear a mask at school, but all of our students will wear a mask at school. We currently at Porter have some students who require specialized instruction and are not, do not spend the majority of their day with their general education peers. And so they have been back at school for a week now. And I'm just very proud to report that I have, kindergarten students with special needs who were very successful the entire first day wearing their mask. They have a mask break every hour. In the little's case, it is on the hour. They get to go outside for more frequent breaks than they have in the past. And they're doing extremely well. I couldn't be prouder of them.
Excellent. And Mr. Abrams, you want to add on what will you see happening for your junior high kids?
Yeah, thank you. For our junior high, it's a little bit different than kindergarten, but at the same time, they also need mask breaks, and I need mask breaks. I think we all do. Depending on the campus layout, for example, my campus, the students transition outside from one class to another. So we can schedule a mask break right at the beginning or end of every class where they have time to then take a break, take their mask off, physically distance outside, get some fresh air, and then transition to the next class. And we just have to extend our passing time by a few minutes. If you're a building that would have interior hallways only or mostly, then you may have to be a little more creative with scheduling that time with the administrator, the teachers, or the different areas in the building in order to work in an appropriate mask break at a secondary level. But I think it's important for all of us through this process to go through that with a kind of a mindset of helping students to understand the importance, but also the compassion when you're teaching them the process. And I know the little ones, the mask goes below the nose, or they pull it down and they forget for a little bit, or they want to be close to someone, without it. And I know that, throughout this whole process, that's going to be a key point to have that compassion and that teaching element to even the new procedures as a mask, as simple as what a mask break you think would be. There's a lot to it. So in high schools, they would have a similar process, probably as junior highs, again, depending on their layout of their buildings.
I think that's important that both of you shared is that our schools look different. We have different ways of dismissing our students and so on. So while we have a district-wide expectation that all kids are wearing masks, all adults are wearing masks, but principals are coming up with very creative and thoughtful ways around how to give those breaks based on their school, the schedules that they have on their campus, and so on. So there was a question that came in that said, because I mentioned that the AB group, and they said, one question we have came in that says, when will we learn what group we're in? So I know principals are working really hard matching the preferences of our staff as well as our teachers and putting together who's in which learning model. So can you talk a little bit, you want to take that one, Mrs. Ray, to talk about how will families know if they're in group A or group B?
So we are coordinating with our feeder pattern schools so that we can accommodate students by last name so that families will have their children on the same schedule. So I've actually heard from parents already, requesting that they follow the Taylor Junior High schedule, which of course we're going to accommodate for them. We're also going to try to accommodate the best we can, step siblings and things like that, so that families really can have the conducive schedule that meets the needs of their family.
And so
So,
when could they expect to hear if they're in Group A or Group B? What is your best guesstimate?
gosh, I would hope by the end of this week. I know as of yesterday, I was still trying to collect 83 families worth of data that I was reaching out to, and so families are having some families are having a hard time making the decision. Each of their situations is very unique. They they have a child struggling in the online learning environment and they want them to come back to school, but they're also are maybe have an aging grandparent that they're taking care of in their home, or the child has a medical need that their parent is worried about them. And so they've had trouble answering the survey and making that decision. And so it's hard to say without all of the data. And Mr. Abrams and I were talking about this earlier today. We are collecting that data and we're getting very close to knowing every single child. So I went from 83 to 23, over
Excellent.
in 24 hours, but we still have a few families that are really having a hard time deciding.
And
They're
it's
very torn.
really, and you need that data to finalize your plans. And so you're hoping by the end of the week?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm hoping by the end of the week, yes.
yeah, I think
Absolutely.
we understand our families and their desires to know and our teachers' desires to know. And it's a lot going into 1 week. We also want to make sure our teachers and our families have time to prepare for that transition, into that next learning model. And if they do have to shuffle a teacher or a classroom and have the proper preparation so every student feels welcomed, feels part of a class. They'll be transitioning some students, but we still want to have that community unity feel that they come into the building or stay into the remote model. But when they come into that building, to have that kind of new class and for everyone's on the same page starting.
So when we're thinking about that learning model, we have a couple questions coming in. I'm going to pair them together. The question is, do students have different teachers for in-person days and a different teacher on their remote day? I can confidently say no across the district. Do you agree with me? That's a no. We're not, right?
No.
Okay. Yep. So when you are assigned to a modified in-person teacher, that teacher will be teaching 2 days per week in person, and then will be supporting their learning in a remote environment. So uh, one of the questions then also that came in that says, why are we doing Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday versus 2 days in a row, a break, and then 2 days in a row? And I'll take that question. I know that on the logistics, we have a logistics design team, and then we also have a teaching and learning design team, and we're thinking about continuity of learning, and that is something that is literally keeping all of us up at night. We know that we've got to get some continuity for children and families that are ready for that for in person. And so the thought between Monday, Thursday is that we don't go with long gaps without seeing our kids or being connected to our kids. So if we did them 2 days and then had a longer break, we want to break up that time of not being in person if that's the model that families choose. So I hope that that was helpful. Can you talk a little bit about what will recess look like on your campus, Kathy?
Well, I'm very fortunate. I have an active and healthy um, support staff. And so she has been compiling a list of activities that are appropriate for social distancing. And so she frequently sends them to me. And so she's very confident that she can have a small group at one point do jump ropes and then take those jump ropes away and put those jump ropes through a disinfecting process so that they will be safe for possibly the next day, a different group to use them. She's got some very, very creative relays and setting kids into teams where, excuse me, like one example was two teams distanced apart, and they race to separate cones, and then they don't touch the cone, but they have to do a different activity, maybe jumping jacks or um, crab crawl in the grass, something like that, at that cone, and then run back. There's similar ones to Duck Duck Goose, where they make a big circle where they're 6 feet apart and they're numbered. And when their number is called, they have to do something different or funny or run around. So those are just some examples that I think will absolutely work. I know right now for some of my students on my campus who have specialized instruction, they they are able to use our swings because they're a very small group of students, and I have support staff who are willing to take on the cleaning of that equipment after a student swings. So we're definitely going to be able to look at ways to clean equipment, to disinfect things so that students can have as much freedom as possible and still be safe outside.
And so, Mr. Abrams, we have a question around what does lunch look like? Modified in person in the middle of a pandemic, what does lunch look like?
Yeah, so lunch, again, you're going to have half the student body in the building at a time. So it may look a little bit different depending on your campus. If a cafeteria area is to be used, then we would have it set up so there's physical distancing between students with the appropriate number in there. Your classrooms will stay with their cohorts at lunch and also at recess. And then also we may have to have lunch in the classrooms or kind of like in a little picnic area outside of the classrooms, depending on the size of your building, size of your staff, and how your building is laid out. So we know it's important to have that social time for those students. We also know we need to make sure that they're safe. And, students, they have their mask off while they're eating. And then obviously when they're outside and having those mask break, that's fine too. But yeah, the schedules are going to be different depending on your school. I have a very large cafeteria. I have a very nice courtyard outside. So I can have students spread out outside when it's nice weather and they're able to eat outside, spread out, and I can fit a number of classes in that one kind of picnic area. Some schools may have to have some areas or may choose to have some areas right outside their classroom. It's safe from the public, but also they have that area to sit or even inside the classroom and then go out for recess afterwards. So again, it's going to be a little bit different depending on the campus. But our goal is to make sure the kids have that special time for socializing and that free social time leading up to a recess time afterwards.
Well, and I have to say that we've got some requests on Facebook Live to have Mrs. Ray for you to be able to share some of your great ideas about recess. It sounds like you've got some fans on Facebook today saying those are great ideas and can we share them? So please send your appreciation to your staff and keep the good stuff going around recess ideas. This is exactly why we do this, is to communicate and share ideas. So we've got quite a few questions coming in on the on-site learning center or the on-site support centers. So let me talk, I'll take that one. Governor Duce's executive order number 51 says that we have on-site support centers for students when they are in remote learning. Since modified in-person has a remote component, that our on-site centers will be available. We will have space available for families to register their children on their days off. So if you are an A group student and you go to school in person Monday, Thursday, you can register for an on-site center Tuesday and Wednesday because we have no in-person, and then on Friday. So those will be available. Also want to let our viewing audience know that we currently have on-site centers at specific locations throughout the district, but beginning September 14th, they will be at all of our schools. So we will have more seats open and they will be more accessible to each community. So on-site centers are available for that. Stay tuned, more information coming out about upcoming registration for those on-site centers. Okay, so here are some questions. I'm going to go back to where I started and I kind of lost it in all of the questions here. I mentioned that we would open to modified in-person learning when we meet the metrics. So there's a question that says, what happens if we don't meet the metrics? Well, we have an agreement with our Mesa Public School Governing Board that says if we do not meet the metrics by September 8th, which is our board meeting next Tuesday, that I, as the superintendent, need to bring them a plan that we reevaluate our current plan and provide them a recommendation. So if we do not meet the metrics on the 3rd and it doesn't, then I will need to have a conversation with them about what this is going to look like. And if we don't meet them by the 10th, that we would have a plan to move forward and to move ahead. So our community can expect after tomorrow morning when we see what our September 3rd metrics look like from the Arizona Department of Public Health, as well as our Maricopa County Public Health, because we are busy getting ready to welcome our kids to school. So we want a healthy community. We are rooting for our percent positivity across our state and our county to decrease. So here we go. And here's another question. Are opening decisions being made by school or for the entire district? Every conversation we have had to this point has been about opening up the entire school district. So I anticipate that that's the way that we would continue to move forward. But again, that would be a conversation with our governing board next Tuesday. All right, so let's take a look at, let's talk about sanitizing. Will desks be sanitized between students? And maybe thinking about, let's just open that to a bigger question. What does classroom sanitizing look like? Either one of you, maybe jump in, both, and maybe tag team this one.
I'll start. So I think the district's really put together a plan to keep the classrooms clean and to prepare them every day with a new kind of cleaning system, misting system, steps to follow, multiple people following each other in rooms, and to complete the process throughout each day or in each evening. Also, the supplies that the schools have received has been enormous, and it's been so welcome. You know, the hand sanitizer, the disinfectant spray, the paper towels needed to do that, and some of the other protective equipment that we have in our buildings now. It's fabulous to help us and to help teachers who do want to, even though it's been cleaned every night, they may still want to come in and wipe down their desks in the morning. When you look at the secondary schools where students may be transitioning from one class to another, then you do have to have a system in place and be able to have the area clean before the next group comes in. There's also, different strategies for that. They're using, the first two groups would use different desks in the room. And then also the teacher may be spraying down the desks that were used. Students coming in maybe or leaving would wipe them down. The students coming in have the same opportunity. There's been a couple different dialogues at the secondary level of what does that look like if students are transitioning from one class to another class. But I can tell you as an administrator, knowing that I have the supplies needed to be able to put systems in place that'll work for my community, for my staff, for my students, that's such a great thing. And we're so appreciative of that and the time that this has been turned around. The bathrooms are expected to be cleaned at a much more regular level, multiple times throughout the day, which is important as well. All those high touch areas throughout the day will be cleaned, doors, door frames, front office area. And then of course, as Kathy mentioned at recess time, if we have the ability to have some equipment used and to be able to sanitize it properly and clean it for an afternoon group, then we want to be able to have the students be able to play with a jump rope or a hula hoop and have that full school experience as best we can give them with the new expectations and kind of cleaning expectations we would have.
Excellent. Thank you to both of you. Now, I did a shout out to Mrs. Ray about she's getting fanfare about her recess ideas. I would be remiss if I didn't share that Mr. Abrams may look pretty familiar to you because he did a video walking through his school to say how they were preparing for modified instruction and walked through a classroom, walked through hallways, talked about what these things look like. And I have to tell you that video, that news clip, it went national. So you have national acclaim, Mr. Abrams. So yay to both of our esteemed principals that are just doing some outstanding work and really representing the needs of the community and have just really helped to move all of our planning across Mesa Public Schools into a better place. So might have embarrassed you there a little bit, Mr. Abrams, but you certainly have become famous in many circles. So here's a question I can take. This one says, what does the student and staff data look like? And I think when we talk about data, I think that this is asking the question around, we've done extensive surveying. As Mrs. Ray said, and I know Mr. Abrams, all of our principals are chasing down families to make sure and chasing down staff saying, please submit your request because they've got to get their plans in place. So it is no surprise for me to share with you that our data, I can give you averages, but then I need to tell you about those averages. So our students selecting modified in person, that's about 2/3 of our community in whole, all of Mesa Public Schools, 2/3 are selecting modified in person, and about 1/3, that remaining 1/3 is selecting remote learning. But that doesn't tell the whole story. That tells the average of Mesa Public Schools. We're very large with 82 schools. We have one school, 90% of the staff of the students have selected modified in person. And then we go all the way down the gamut. And then we have another school that has 42% of their families selecting modified in person. So that is how diverse that we are. So we have every principal is working with their specific community data to fulfill to their very best of their abilities the choices of their families. Then when we look at our staff data, we have about 70% of our staff, our teachers, that are willing to return to modified in person. And again, that looks different by school, but on average, it's about 70% of our teachers saying, let's go with modified in person, a little higher than 70%. So that gives an idea of what that looks like across Mesa Public Schools. And again, these are not easy decisions for our families and for our staff as well, really thinking hard about this around what is best for them and the health and well-being of themselves and their families. So let's talk about specials. Are specials available to A and B students? How does that look like? What does that look like in your schools, Kathy and Jeff?
Well, so we currently, for our students who need specialized instruction, we just requested K-6 that they continue bringing their laptop with them to school daily so that they could still participate in online live and asynchronous specials with their gen ed peers, and also to continue the magnificent technology skills that even our itty bitty littles are learning right now. And also to keep that going in the event that, something, heaven forbid, goes south with the pandemic and, the state shuts down again, for example. They can seamlessly take that laptop and continue learning, and we won't be in a situation like we were last spring where learning had that big disconnect there for a moment. So our specials will continue the way they are now, and we will have all of our K-6 bring their own laptops to school with them and still log in and get that live or asynchronous lesson so that no one is missing specials.
Excellent. And Mr. Abrams?
Yeah, to echo what Kathy said, the process is kind of a district-wide process for music, PE. At the secondary level, you get into electives, so it's a little bit different. It's more like its own course. To echo Kathy, that there'll be live, lessons, asynchronous lessons. Teachers, the specials teachers would be teaching remote to the students as they're learning in class.
All right, we are coming up on 4:30, and we usually make about a 30-minute commitment, but we're going to extend this because we've got some more good questions coming through. Mrs. Ray, would you like to clarify or add something?
Well, I was just going to add that it was a very collaborative process in deciding whether those specials were going to stay remote or not. And I think it's important for the community to know some of the thought process behind that. I felt very strongly about my art teacher staying remote because, art is one of those specials where an elementary art teacher, in my case, that person travels to 5 campuses. And in a regular year, on a normal day, sees 130 to 150 students each day. And so when you multiply that by 5 different environments, we want to keep everybody safe, and that's just not a group size that is recommended right now. So, um, so while it is going to be challenging for, I think, teachers to have their breaks, and we have to get creative with that, I think it is the model that keeps our students and all of our staff the safest right now.
Thank you. So I've got a question. This is one I had never even thought of. I'm so glad this came through. I can tell my kids are getting older. Will we get supply lists? And are the students bringing their laptops? So what about supply lists? Want to take that one, Mr. Abrams?
Sure, yeah. Supply lists, there will be some, and I know at my school, we just had that in our staff meeting today. They're going to be a little bit tweaked than before because we've always begged for hand sanitizer. Like we've always begged for hand sanitizer and little baby wipes, or the teachers would ask for, the wipes to use after school. And we're happy to say that, as I said earlier, we have hundreds of gallons of sanitizer in my building as I speak. So some of those cleaning supplies may not be needed, but also if the supplies weren't purchased that were requested before the school year started, then there would be a modified list, and depending on the principal, administrator, and how their teachers communicate, they would communicate appropriately for their campus. But I know my girls go to this school with me, and they wanted to buy their supplies in June. Like they were so excited to buy their supplies and lay out their first day of school clothes. So one of the highlights is they get to have their first day of school clothes twice, basically, whenever we come back to a modified in person. So I always look for those little positives in every situation, and I know for those two little girls, they're going to really be excited about that.
That's awesome. That's great. And I think that what we can add on to a supply list that we haven't thought about in any other year that I've ever been an educator is we would add on, make sure that kids have appropriate fitting face coverings, that they've got a mask that fits them well, that they're comfortable with, that they've got some extra that they know how to package them and keep them in a little bag, bring a water bottle to refill. That's one of the details that we can share with the community, is that our drinking fountains will be used to refill water bottles, not to actually be drinking out of. That's a safety measure that we'll have in place across our schools. So if they don't have a water bottle that's fancy with their name on it, this is the time for them to pick one out, and to make sure that they have an ample supply of masks to be taking back and forth to school, and making sure that they're washed and cleaned and all those good things. So it looks
Dr.
like,
Corliss,
yes, Kathy,
could I add on to that?
please,
We've
you will
had
be our last word.
we've had a huge outpouring of community support
Yes.
With school supplies, especially with children not being able right now to share those supplies. I know the council member, Francisco Heredia, for my area, really advertised donations throughout separate, different corporations, and those are getting delivered to my campus tomorrow. I had a community member, so 414 adorable cloth masks from pre-K itty bitties to 6th grade size, and even masks that would be appropriate for a hearing impaired student who possibly wears hearing aids. So I just want to say thank you to just the generosity in the community has been very humbling and so appreciated.
Oh, thank you for saying that, Kathy. Yes, that is something that has just really come through as a shining star throughout Mesa Public Schools as we have worked through these very, very uncertain and difficult times. The outpouring of kindness and care and generosity and grace that has been granted to us by our community. We could not be more thankful. And I am so thankful for our parents who have been so patient as we have worked through new learning models and redefining what school looks like. So A huge, huge appreciation. And speaking of appreciation, I appreciate both of you. Kathy, Jeff, thank you for taking time this afternoon. I know that our community is better informed because of the work that you're doing, and we'll be back here again next Wednesday at 4 o'clock with Facebook Live. And if the topic, we continue to watch other avenues of our social media to see where our questions are popping up, and that drives our topics. So if it's modified in person, we'll be right back here talking about that as well. So thank you again. Have a wonderful evening with your families. And I appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.